Hello listeners, my name is Liam Powell, and in this episode I'm going to be talking about the dowsing rod. So in today's episode we're going to be examining whether the dowsing rod and dowsing practices are facts or are they myths of fiction. So without further ado, let's get straight into this episode. Well, let's get into what dowsing rods actually are before we go into the history of them and the science behind them. So what is a dowsing rod? So dowsing rods can be comprised of wood and or metal, and basically they are used for when you're trying to locate deposits of water and or minerals. So basically you just have these two pieces of metal and or wood, like I just said, and you'd walk around and you just let them go side to side until they cross paths, and that is when you would have located water or a mineral deposit. So when they cross paths, that's when people that are pro dowsing rods, either scientifically or spiritually, they say that they're this form of unseen energy that makes them cross paths and locate, specifically because they say that water has some form of life force in it that makes small little permutations, I guess, in the force of dowsing rods, which makes them cross paths, which is kind of a crazy idea. While people that are against the use of dowsing rod practices, based on there's no really scientific finding that backs it up. This is not actually what dowsing rods actually are. Usually they're just you hold some sort of like arm and it allows it to move back and forth without you actually holding the rod. So right now it looks like I can just do whatever. Now onto the history of dowsing rods. The first documented case of using dowsing rods, or the first depiction of them being used, is in the Tsili Caves of South Africa, which was discovered in 1949. So in this Tsili cave, they found practices of dowsing rods showing an individual holding two of them that cross paths on a pocket of water, but they also found some crazy things that were in the sky of this painting that they just assume were religious or other spiritual type of ideas. So that also inhibits the actual reliability of these findings, but it is a pretty significant use case as it was dated to 8,000 years BC. The next landmark of dowsing rod history is in ancient Egypt. In some of the caves in the temples and or pyramids of Egypt, they showcase pharaohs of old using what looks like dowsing rods, and you can see specific instances of this in the Cairo Museum of Ancient History of the Egyptian Empire, where they have ceramic dowsing rods on display, which signifies that dowsing was a widespread belief and use of dowsing rods back in ancient times of specifically the Egyptian Empire. Further, dowsing rods actually have historical ties even in the Bible. We see that Moses refers to something as the rod to locate water, and King Nebuchadnezzar, while he might have not been the greatest person to base our life upon, he also used diviners and people such as dowsing rod enthusiasts, if you will, to locate water. And I'm gonna have to refer to my notes for this part of the history of dowsing rods because that's some words that I can't really remember, so hold with me. So in ancient Greece, dowsing was also known as rhabdomancy, which is mentioned in the blind poet Homer's The Odyssey. Further, the Pythian oracle of Delphi is said to have used a pendulum to answer questions posed by kings, queens, and military commanders. And even further, the term caduceus, I think I said that right, often associated dowsing rods was also used to refer with healing and other forms of spiritual actions in classical literature. So while this might not be the best example of the reliability of ancient accounts, but it does show how widespread it has been through human history. And starting in the Middle Ages with around the 1400s, dowsing actually became a practice that started to differentiate itself from traditional spiritual practices to actual scientifically backed phenomena. So it was called actually the Virgula Divina in Latin, and it was used in Germany to identify minerals used by miners during those times. Upon that, I'm going to use my notes again, they referred to this forked stick as deuter. The term dowsing itself made its first official appearance in 1650 in one of John Locke's essays, which he is a prominent philosopher at the time. So as you can see, it kind of started to drift away from the traditionally spiritual aspect that it arose in, and it started to become part of this more scientifically backed phenomena, if you will. So now we enter into the modern era of dowsing. So starting off this era, we have in 1912, Herbert Hoover, the 31st president of the United States of America, translated the Latin opus into English and praised the practice of dowsing. And from that, it became widespread in certain areas of America like the Appalachia, and especially in places where finding water was a necessity to survive. But however, with this growth that it had seen in American modern history, it's also seen a widespread let's say, counterattacked by skepticists and also scientifically minded individuals. So not only do we see people vouch for dowsing's actual, let's say, truthfulness and how it actually allows people to find water in certain occasions, but others say that this is just a coincidence and it's not based on any scientific principle. Now, let's get into the science behind dowsing. Okay, so going on to the science of dowsing rods, the main inhibitor to why most people believe that dowsing rods are not actually a truthful phenomena is based on the fact that they arose through spiritual means, and the most types of research on them is just not based on any type of empirical factual data or information, and it's more based on this happened to me, so it must be true. Further, another reason why dowsing rods had a resurgence recently is to an increase in climate change. One of the many known effects that you guys must know about climate change is the fact that rising world temperatures means that there's going to be more droughts throughout all of the world. So because of this increase in necessity for water, more people have resorted to more fantastical based means to find sources of water, and dowsing is quite a lucrative kind of idea to get people to pay you for a necessity that everyone needs. Further, a significant finding that attributes to this, upon that, another reason why dowsing rods is a phenomena that is not really regarded well in the scientific community is because of the ideal motor phenomenon. This phenomenon is basically the idea that your subconscious sends little twitches in your muscles that will alter your holding of the dowsing rods just so that you will get a perceived outcome, even though your subconscious knows that it did it, even though you might not know that you did it. And this has actually been proven with other forms of spiritual communication, such as the Ouija board. People subconsciously feel like their hands are moving because not only are they doing it with other individuals, but because of the ideomotor phenomenon, where their body sends subtle twitches to their hands, which move the stone all across the board. One of the most important forms of why dowsing has been largely eradicated in the scientific community is because of the LRNing experience, I think I said that right, was located in Germany. Basically, they had 500 individuals collected across Germany come to the specific barn where they had one source of running water beneath the barn, and they had 500 individuals use their dowsing rod capabilities to try to locate this flow of running water. However, 91%, or 437 of the group of people in that dowsing rod experiment were unable to locate any form of water, and their rods crossed paths at places where the water or any type of mineral was not present. And with that out of the way, that brings us to the end of this episode. I want this episode to be a quick deep dive into a conspiracy theory about dowsing rods, how it has had quite a large impact on human history, and how it's been used all over the world. But in modern times, we've yet to find any really conclusive evidence for it, but we've had quite a bit of evidence that goes against it. So if you've ever used dowsing rods and you feel like it worked for you, be my guest, continue to use it and continue to have fun using it. But personally, I'm gonna say that this one is not scientifically backed, and it's just more of a fun way to get outside, Thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys learned something. Keep on learning. Bye.